everybody, good afternoon. This is Jean here. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Hi everybody, this is Jean, Truelove Quilts for you. I don't know if that's gonna work. I changed the name of my channel and I can't get used to it because I've been saying that for years. Funny. I'm going to be continuing my beginner Carpenter Star tutorials. I think they're pretty good actually, considering I've gotten off of sewing, but I just wanted to introduce you to my old friend. Remember Patty C? I show her at the end of this video because I've come into my other room. And I thought, where am I going to film to do my little introduction to my Carpenter Star? And I thought, oh, you guys who've been following me know the story behind this quilt and how I made it step by step. But I thought, it's come out of mothballs, and Ian had said, oh, put it up on your shelf. It's not, we've run out of walls. I explained that in the very end. But I thought you guys who know Patty C would like to be revisited with her again. She's our friend, and had hung in a quilt show. I'm very, very proud of her. So at the very end of this video, I do some close-ups for you people who don't know. But again, this is a tutorial for my Carpenter Star. I am making this step by step, so hopefully you beginners can follow along. I teach very, very elementary, as I say, step by step, piece by piece, how to do things. And this video to come is marking our half square triangles, to make our half square triangles, marking our fabric, cutting them and ironing them. And then at the very end, I'm going to be trimming them down. I've not actually done that. It's a tedious process and I have things to do right now, but I will explain it all. The next video, we will be putting our quilt on a design wall or a table, the blocks together, so hopefully you're following along. Again, I don't know how this block is going to turn out, how big it will, because it's 8 blocks across, 8 rows down, and they're 6.5 inch blocks, so 6 inch, so 48 inches, say 46 inches, just the star, and then we have to address the borders. And again, if you're doing this in scraps, you don't have to, somebody did say, oh, I wonder if my scraps would look good together, you know, pulling the scraps. Well, scrappy quilts are that. They're just everything together, and it will look lovely if you have some extra things, especially very beginner. If you have a few projects and you have some scraps left, or if you've been like me and you're working with a layer cake, a purchased pack of fabrics, or even as I was addressing, fat quarters can be cut down into the squares. So however you're doing it, I'm wishing you well with your success, and hopefully we can all get there in the end, like I say. Anyway, folks, thank you very, very much for following. I hope you enjoy this tutorial to come, because Truelove Quilts for you. Jean, that's me. All right, folks, see you later. Before I start marking and cutting my half square triangles over on my machine, I wanted to show you that from my pack of 10-inch squares, 42 10-inch squares from my layer cake, my Moda layer cake, I have 10 squares left because we've only used 32 of our squares for our block here. Now what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to try, hopefully it will work, to make a scrappy border, whether it be like a piano key style or just up and down. I'm not quite sure how much fabric I'm going to have left. What I'm going to do is, as you saw, I've already cut 3-inch strips from my 7-inch block, but I have 3.5-inch strips. I'll probably cut them down to 3-inch, because what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to take the remainder of my 42 blocks here. I have quite a few that's been piled up there, which I'm okay. I scratched together, and I'm just taking again my little ruler and my 2-ruler method. I'm going to be cutting 3, 1, 2, 3, having a 1/2 inch left over of 3-inch strips. I've put this on my board nice and square. I see that there is my 3-inch mark right there, and I have a nice sharp rotary blade. Open it up, and I'm going to cut right there, and I'm just going to continue making my 3-inch strips. I want to try to use all of the fabric from my my layer cake here. I don't want to waste any fabric except this little 1/2 inch over here. So I'll just continue cutting 3-inch strips. And then I will take the rest of these strips, and here I am, nice and organized, and I will find my 3-inch strip bag, 3-inch wide strips, and there is a ton of strips. Now I know the other ones are 3x7, but that's okay. That's a whole bunch of fabric there. We've used the entire 42-inch, 42 layer cakes, pieces of 10-inch fabric. So now what I'm going to do is, because I have my handy dandy little organizing system here, I'm going to, nope, that's not it. That's not it. Oh, that's not it either. Oh, okay, these two are it. I have my 7-inch squares here, and my 7-inch scrappy squares, and my 7-inch background squares, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my scrappy fabric, making sure it's my 7 inches. These bags, I don't know where they open up. There you go. And again, remember how I said that we're going to be configuring these in different ways, and this actually, let me just pull this back. See how that reads white? It's white, 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 white. But up close, it has like newspaper print. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a scrappy and a background piece, and then I'm going to put them on the diagonal here, scratch them together, and then with just a ruler, and I have a pen here. These are, again, are my 7-inch pieces. I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner. That's going to take me a while, so I'm just going to draw a line. I start in the middle, holding my my ruler tightly, because sometimes the fabric can ruck up. Now this, in the beginning, as I said, you will need pins. Just again to keep organized, I put a pin here and I put a pin there in case the wind blows or something happens or whatever. So I'm just going to continue with my 16 pieces here. Oh, and again, remember, pretty side to pretty side, right side of the fabric to the right side of the fabric, okay? So we're putting the right sides together, and we're going to be marking, and then I will show my beginners how we're going to be sewing. So my ruler goes from corner to corner. I start in the middle. Yeah, I'm using a pen. That's okay, because we're going to actually cut on that line. And I'm just going to pin them to hold them together. Now remember, these are your 7-inch squares. Pretty side to pretty side. And I will just continue. Now I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and start sewing these together. I'm at my machine, and I have my pile to the, what is this, the left over here, and I have my quarter-inch foot on my Juki sewing machine. I'm just going to be chain piecing these. Now, if you're new here, that's not, you don't have to be worried about that. What we're doing is we are putting our needle right down, our presser foot down, a 1/4 inch away from this line. Okay, we are going to be stitching a 1/4 inch away from that marked line. Because we have had it pinned, we can be assured that our pieces of fabric are going to stay together, because actually this here is on the bias. So if you had cut these perhaps into triangles, that would have had the tendency to stretch. This way, to make 2 half square triangles, and I'll show you when I'm done this one what we're going to be making. Again, if you're a beginner here, this is called making a half square triangle. So I'm going to start my machine. I don't have to back stitch right now, and I'm going to be running my presser foot, if you have a 1/4 inch foot, or if you marked it, right along that line. I'm stitching a 1/4 inch away from that line. You don't have to go so fast. Just go slowly. 1/4 inch away. When I come to the end, I'm going to keep my needle down. I'm going to keep my needle down into the plate here, but I'm going to lift up my presser foot. I have a mechanical machine, so it doesn't do it automatically. And I'm going to twirl this around. And I'm just going to pull out that thread gently, just about 2 inches or so. And then do you see what I did? And then I'm just going to come back on myself, lower my presser foot, again, 1/4 inch away from that line, and come back down on myself. I'm going to go off. For this one, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to lift my presser foot up. I like to pinch my fabric and pull so as not to stress this seam here. Okay, now I'm going to do this en masse when I go over to my cutting table. I'm going to be cutting this with a rotary cutter, but right now I just want to show you what we've made. I'm going to cut with my pair of scissors here. I'm going to cut perfectly on that penned line. Be very careful when you do this, especially if you're new. Take your time right up to the end. Separate those threads. Okay, and this is what we end up with. We end up with two beautiful half square triangles. Okay, 1, 2. All right. Now, what I was saying before in the configuration, I might have a piece on my Carpenter Star. I might have a bit like that. Well, you see that goes that way, that writing, and this goes this way. I'm not bothered by that because any way you look at this quilt, it'll be interesting to see, oh, look at that newsprint. But again, you pull back, you pull back, you pull back, it reads white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put these to the side, because what we're going to do is we're going to press these really, really well. But I'll just show you, again, you beginners, how we're going to chain piece. So for my chain piecing technique, it's slightly different than sewing one at a time. What we're going to do is we're going to start out exactly the same way. I'm 1/4 inch away from my line, and I'm going to start my needle down, and I'm going to sew my 1/4 inch line on this right side of my half square triangle. I'm going to come to the end. I have my needle down. I'm going to grab another one. I'm not turning around. I'm going to grab another one of my units. I'm going to lift my presser foot up ever so slightly, and then I'm just going to bite. There you go. I'm just going to start biting into the second one. Now this one we're going to be sewing all of these down the right side, and then when we get to the very end, we'll turn the whole chain around and come back just like I did with my first one on the second side. So my needle I'm going to put down, and my presser foot is down right there. Grab another one, scratch it together, and then just continue chain piecing. I have all of these pieces. I'm going to leave my needle down, and I'm going to bring my presser foot up very gently. I'm going to take this whole kit and caboodle like this, twirl it towards me, pinch that about 1 inch. And I have these sort of over here, and I'm going to just continue coming up. Again, this will be on the right side of my line, and I will just continue stitching my chain. Come to the end of my chain, pinch my fabric, and I'll cut it. Now obviously there are the stitches that are the chains that we obviously have to cut apart. So just continue doing that, and then I'll go over and I'll show you how I rotary cutter these apart. So again, this is what we're going to end up with. We're going to end up with our beautiful half square triangles. Like that, 2 from each. Now, if you're comfortable, you can take your pins out. If you're comfortable using a rotary cutter just on the line, you can do that by eye. Or if you're not comfortable using the rotary cutter, you can by all means use a ruler and cut. Or, as if you saw me do, you can use a pair of scissors. So I'm just going to continue along. And I'm going to be using my ruler along my straight edge there, so I don't accidentally cut into my 1/4 inch seam there. Okay? Oh, they're so pretty. Yeah, lovely. So I have all my half square triangles, and I'm going to go into my ironing board and show you what I do next. So I'm on my ironing board, and there's a little bit of a a little bit of a method to this madness. I'm going to be ironing these, or pressing. A lot of people press, they do this, or they iron, they do that. I tend to iron a little bit. What I'm doing now is I'm going to be setting my seam. Now, if you're new here and you don't know what this means, when you've just, let me just put these over here. When you've just stitched that, when you actually iron that seam down, it sort of sinks those stitches into the fabric and you get a nice crisp seam. I'm doing everything slowly for you new ones, so you get your blocks really quite nice. So now what you're going to do, I've set these seams. I'm going to pull up the dark piece first, okay? I'm going to just pull the dark piece up like that, and very carefully with the tip of my iron, I'm just going to nudge that seam over, okay? Just going to nudge it over to get a nice square block there, and press that. Now what you will see me do is I'm going to be putting these blocks in 2 separate piles, okay? We want our one bit of sewing has, if you remember, yielded 2 half square triangles. Now the quilt, even though it's scrappy, there's going to be duplicates. There are going to be 2 of each block. And what I want to do, pretty much not a little bit random, but a little bit thought out, is have half of my blocks that I've made at the top and half of my blocks at the bottom of the quilt. That will come in my next video when I'm putting the quilt together. What you will be needing is a design wall. Now, you may not need that if you have a large table. As a beginner, you probably won't have what is called a design wall. I'm an experienced quilter and I don't have a design wall. What I do have is a cheap dollar store flannel backed tablecloth that I'll show you that next week, that I'll just tack up on my, or clip onto my shelves here or a wall, and then I can start arranging my blocks. And that's the biggest part of this. So as I'm doing here, I'm setting these seams and I'm pulling up the dark, because what we're doing is I'm pressing all of my seams to the dark side, okay? That's pretty much a rule in the beginning of quilting. You press to the dark side. Now, it is a rule that sometimes can be broken, absolutely, yes. But in general, because you don't want your fabric, this pink, to show on the white, and it will show through if I would do it like that. That would show through perhaps when it's quilted. Not a lot, but it's just in general, it's better to press, to set your seam, and to just gently roll your block, which you've cut beautifully, and you're ironing beautifully, and then we're just going to, again, put them in 2 separate piles. So again, I will just continue with this little chore here. So fresh off of my ironing board, I have my half square triangle blocks. And what I have done is I've actually taken the 2 Ziploc bags and I've replaced the tape, okay, with a tape that says 6.5 inch HST. If you ever see that on a pattern, that means half square triangles, because I want to keep these in 2 different lots, okay? It's not really necessary that you do that to make a scrappy quilt, but because there's duplicates, I sort of want one half of the scrappy on the top and the other half of the scrappy on the bottom. That's just me. But before I do that and put them in my bags, I'm actually going to walk away and because this is a chore. But I think if you want to become a really good beginner quilter or to an experienced quilter, the next step is extremely tedious, but put some music on and have some fun. What we're going to do is we're going to be making sure that our squares, our half square triangles, measure 6.5 inches. And you'll probably be saying, well, as I said when I started sewing, like, come on, cut me a break. I've measured them, I've cut them, I've sewn them really well. When we go to put our, and that's true, but when we go to put our quilt together, because we are trying to match our points really, really well. Even though I'm not a perfectionist, this little trick, you might as well start learning it properly. If you have a ruler here, like I do, which most of you will have, it has a diagonal line, okay? Or you have a 6.5 inch ruler or whatever you have. Now what I'm going to do is, all I'm going to do is, and this time I'm not going to bore you, I'm not going to do it in fast motion, because actually I have to walk away from this because it's a tedious project. I'm going to put that line sort of centered. Now as you can see, I'm thinking, oh, these blocks are exactly 6.5, right? They're exactly 6.5. I put that diagonal on from corner to corner, and lo and behold, on this side, that's 6.5. What you have are little slivers, and you're like, oh, cut me a break. That doesn't make any difference. Come on. Well, folks, when you're going to actually try to make your block fit perfectly, it actually does make a difference. Just these little slivers and these little dog ears at the end will actually, after you do a million of these blocks, you will notice that you're going to have a little bit of fabric left over. And again, it's a little bit of a tedious job. What you're going to do is you're going to find your 6.5. It takes a little while, and it's a task that a lot of quilters don't like to do. My 6.5 and my 6.5. That's almost perfect. It's almost perfect. 6.5 over here. But just hold it tightly, and you will see right there, just there, off of one little block, that fabric. And when you times that, sort of not times it, but when you add that all up in a block, in a quilt, those little slices can amount to something. They really, really can. I'm a little bit confused here. Here we go. So they really can amount to something. So do it on all four sides, putting your 6.5 to your 6.5. Now, there is an actual tool, a block, called a block ruler, or a block trimmer or something, that you can actually use. Now look at that. That's just off one block, which I'm like, oh yeah, that's a 6.5 inch block. That's perfect. It wasn't. It wasn't actually perfect. So hopefully when we go to put it together, it will be pretty perfect. So I'm going to be taking my time. I'm going to be putting these in my two separate piles. And I'm going to take however long it is, put some music on, and then I'm going to be putting my trimmed up half square triangles in each bag. This lot will go in that bag, and that lot will go in that bag. So the next video, I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of what I'm going to be doing. So I've come into my other room, and I wanted to show you what I'm going to be doing next week. I am putting up this flannel-backed vinyl tablecloth. Cheapo, $3 at the dollar store. I could be using a piece of cotton batting. The reason why, we're going to be putting it up vertically on a wall. You can tack it, you can tape it. I use these clamps up on my bookshelf. And that way, when we go to arrange our lovely blocks now, that's the next part. It's going to almost be done. Well, not quite done. We have to sew them together. But we want to visually be able to see our blocks. And that's why this is almost sort of called a design wall. You want to see sort of vertically, if you want to, or if you have a large enough table to put it on, to set our blocks out in the proper order. Okay, so I'm going to be doing that. As when I had my kaleidoscope quote, my supporters had seen me clip these up on my bookshelf over here. But what happened was, my husband and I were chatting. Look what we've done. I've run out of walls, but Ian was like, I really miss Patty C. So this is a bookshelf of fabrics here. These are my shelves of fabrics behind my quilt. But I made this quilt years ago. So many of you followed along. And it had been rolled up. I don't fold my majority of my quilts. I roll them. So there's absolutely no creases. And this was my collage quilt here that I actually had as my faithful friends in YouTube know, I had actually had her hanging in a quilt show. I did follow a pattern loosely, a Laura Heine pattern called The Dress. I absolutely modified it because because I put a face on her and her top hat. I put an actual acrylic braid on her and three-dimensional flowers. But yeah, she's been, since our last house had flooded, we had saved everything, and I had rolled this up in plastic, and well, a sheet actually, and then plastic, and it was down in our basement in storage. And I thought, oh, I want to get it up, and I'm like, we don't have a wall big enough. But he says, no, just put it up there. So actually, it's fine. I use these heavy-duty like plumber's clamps. They're wonderful. They hold everything. Really wonderful. I'm not bothered that it creases the quilt a little bit. It's okay. But yeah, so there's my Patty C. So we're going to rotate some of my quilts that I have here in storage. I actually used an actual necklace for her neck, and just cut out all different fabric collage bits. That's hand store-bought lips, false eyelashes. And if you go back in my videos, Elliot, our 5th son, who's very artistic, he helped me with the top hat to design that. And then again, I embellished this quite a lot from the pattern. But all of the fabrics, again, just scrap fabrics. I did have this fabric, which was an actual printed fabric, which I thought, oh, I knew I had that. I pulled it out. I'm like, that'll make a beautiful like petticoat, the black and white. And as you know, I love my I love my striped bindings, and this one was the black and white. Loved that. But I want to show you, you don't have to put the same binding on a quilt, because that's a black and white stripe. But down here, if I could get down there, there's a black and white dot. I just put it in the corner, sewed it in the corner. So 2 sides are black and white dot, and then 2 sides are black and white stripe. So yeah, so I can admire my Patty C. But next week I will be just clipping up my tablecloth, and we'll be putting together our very simple Carpenter Square. So Patty C and I say hello. Hope everyone is doing okay. Thank you very much, you beginners, for following along, and my faithful friends for supporting me as you do. Boy, I appreciate it. I love all your comments. And yeah, love from the Trueloves. Have a lovely day, everybody. Bye-bye.